Okay, let's have some fun with Adobe Premiere Pro effects. I'm using 2023, but this will work in most of the previous versions as well. So just going to go over basic effects that come with the program. And I'm going to be in the effects workspace so that I have all of these tabs on the right and effects will be open. And then your project panel will be in the bottom left, and that's where you'll want to bring in a video clip. And I'm just using this one of soccer players. I also have a still image because I'm going to show you something for that. So if you want to kind of play along, get you a video clip and a still image. And then I've cut the video clip into pieces. So you'll see I just put some little snips with the razor tool in here. And then I moved this one to a higher line so that I can have this sky image underneath. And I just made them all the same size. As a reminder, the second button here, the track select forward button, lets you scoot things down. So if you need to scoot down a whole chunk, you can do that with that track select button instead of moving them one at a time. All right, let's get to it. So we're going to show effects, but I want to show it with keyframing. And that means we're going to use effect controls quite a bit. So I'm just going to run through kind of the fast and dirty version here of how you can use some of my favorite, maybe lesser known effects. I'm just going to search for them in the search box. This first one is going to be turbulent displace. It's a video effect distortion. Now again, depending on what you're doing, this might not be useful at all. But if you're doing like a music video or some sort of special effect kind of thing, it might be neat. So I'm going to pull this in and drop it on the clip. Once you drop it on the clip, oh, hold on, let me undo. I'm still clicked on all of those clips. Let me click off and then make sure I'm clicked on only one single clip. You'll see that little white line around it. When you use the track select, it selects multiples. So you got to kind of click off. Okay, I'm clicked on it now, and I've pulled my playhead to the middle of this clip. I'm going to drag turbulent displace and just drop it on there. Okay, and now in the effect control, now it went kind of crazy. In the effect controls, if you scroll down, you'll see turbulent displace, and these are all the options that you can change. Now this one is kind of just a weird, like, I call it dream sequence or, you know, whatever, but when you play it, you'll just see it's kind of, I don't know, like someone's high or something. I don't know. That's probably not the greatest explanation. So you can kind of use it just like that, but there's lots of things you can mess with. I like to mess with evolution sometimes, and you can see what that does. It changes the way that it works. So now it's sort of, you know, evolving a bit, I guess you would say. All right, so those are kind of, that's the first one. All right, let's look at lens distortion. I'm going to go to this one over here and use lens distortion. I like this one if you are going from like one thing to another, almost like a transition. It looks pretty neat. So let me use this clip over here. So I'm going to type in lens distortion. I'll just type in lens and then find it. It's under a distort again. Click and drag. Now this one, nothing happens right off the bat. So this is one that it's just going to do something to the video clip that doesn't involve any kind of motion unless you use keyframing. So with keyframing, just like within Adobe Animate, with keyframing, you want to have a beginning and an ending point that are like you want them. And then that middle point that's going to be like kind of funky so that we can have this weird special effect. So when you're keyframing, you're looking for these stopwatches to be blue. You want to turn a blue stopwatch on. And you can keyframe on multiple lines at one time if you want, but it'll only keyframe on lines where you've got a blue watch. Okay, so you have to kind of watch that. If you don't want it to keyframe, like if I just want to change it, I don't want to have that pushed. Okay, so let's say that like here it's fine. I just want that to be my normal beginning, and I'm just going to use curvature. So I'm going to turn this on. See, now you have this dot telling you there's a keyframe here. Then I'm going to say, okay, at the end I want it to be normal. So let's put another dot here. So that's the beginning and the end. So those are all going to be normal. In the middle, I'm going to change this curvature. And I personally like to hit the diamond to put those in. It'll put it in when you start changing the number anyway. All right, so if I go that way, it goes the wrong way. I want it to curve like this way. Okay, that's a little bit extreme, spaghetti arms, but it's fine. Now this will kind of tween in between like an animation would. So now if I play it, it starts off normal, then it does the kind of crazy thing, and then it works its way back. Okay? So that's that. And again, if you're going to make changes to the settings, don't just drag there and do it because you're more than likely accidentally going to put in another keyframe. So if you're going to move to a keyframe to change it, use the arrow key to go to it. You'll see that it's blue, and then you can make those changes. Like, okay, that's really weird looking, but let's say that's what I'm looking for. I don't know. So kind of crazy, and then it kind of goes back to normal. Okay? All right, so that's that one, lens distortion. And again, you could do it for a much more subtle effect. So like, I don't have to go like obnoxiously. I could just bend it a little bit, and then you just kind of a bend going on there. So you could be super subtle with it if you wanted to. And then there's other settings you can also mess with. Okay, let's do fast blur. So with this one, I am going to kind of, along with this, let me go ahead and add this back to the crazy number that I had, like this crazy one. Let's add a blur in here. So you can have multiple effects. You're just going to drag them on the same clip. And I'll type in blur, and then I'm going to come down under the obsolete here and choose this fast blur and pull it in. All right, this isn't going to do anything at first, but I have a stopwatch. And I have a blurriness number. So again, if I want it to stay clear, like from, you know, here to here, then turn your blurriness on and keep that one at 0. And if you want it to go back to clear at the end, then put that one in and make sure that's 0. And then if you want it to have like blur between these two, like it gets blurrier and then it gets less blurry, here's in the middle where you're going to change that blurriness. So there, I'll make it really noticeable. Okay, so now we have two things happening, and they're not even happening at the same time as far as intervals go. All right, there, isn't that neat? And that's fast blur. And you can do it like super fast. Like I could have pulled these, and you can pick up and move them. I could pull these keyframes really close together if I want it to all happen just really fast. So it's like, whew, like so. I like the sound effect there, right? That I just made. Okay, so that's fast blur blurriness. Again, these are keyframes. If you decide you don't want something, just click on it, right click and clear, or press delete on your keyboard. You can also just delete keyframes by right clicking and clearing those keyframes. So very simple to make changes to these, or just completely delete them if you don't like them, if you don't need them. All right, next one is tint. How can we tint something a color? I'm going to go to this last clip. Come over here and type in tint. This is going to be a color correction video effect. So you can drag it in. Okay. It's immediately going to make it black and white. That's how tinting works. And then it lets you decide what do you want shades of black to be and what do you want shades of white to be. Very simple. So you just click it and say, I want my black areas to be a dark purple and I want my white areas to be white. And then it would look like this. Or maybe you want your white areas to be a different shade of like a purple. You know, then you get this kind of effect, right? Very simple to do. You can also back off the tint, so you can pull it down so that it would be back to normal, so it doesn't have the whole thing. But I think it looks a lot cooler to do it all the way. Okay? There we go. And so that's kind of the way to do that. You can animate tinting as well. So that 100% number here, you could go in and say, you know, at the beginning of the clip, let's put it to amount to tint, none, right? And then maybe here, amount to tint, and we'll put that 100 in there. So now we have the 2, and then it will gradually go from normal color to the tinted color. So you can keyframe tinting, and then I could even keyframe it back, right? If I'm like, so from there to there, let's stay tinted. And then from here to here, let's go back to 0 tint, normal. There we go. Isn't that fun? Love it. Okay, Lumetri. Let's go over to Lumetri. Lumetri are colors. So if you want to change your colors, and what I mean by that is like make them pop more, give it an old time, like old school film effect or whatever. There's all kinds of cool ones. Now, Lumetri does have built-in presets, which are amazing. If you do type in Lumetri, there's a whole bunch of presets in here. So I'll drag one in and delete it just so you can see, but like there is this monochrome strong faded. If I pull that in here, that does this, like it's a super faded out kind of look, right? All right, let me delete the Lumetri color one because I don't want that one, and show you how we can just use Lumetri and set it how we want. So instead of using these on the effects one, close down effects and use Lumetri color. And it's going to do it to whatever clip you're clicked on. It'll still put it over here. So curves is kind of like a fun one to use because you just pull on this line and see how you can just like do different, you know, stuff there with it. See, isn't that neat? So that's fun. So you can use curves to do some like cool color grading a bit, that sort of thing. There's also some creative looks in here, so you can like give it a faded film look. This one doesn't work so much because I've got the curves turned up so much, but Basic corrections like saturation or tinting or temperature if you want it to have a gold, more of a gold. See, I can pull the temperature up so it's warmer picture. Contrast, I already have a lot of contrast on it, but that's going to darken the dark areas and so forth. So that's fun. There's also a vignette effect in here where you can put like around the edges. So like now it's dark around the edges or it's lighter around the edges. So that's super, super cool. So love that with the Lumetri effects. You can do some neat things with just kind of the color. Okay, strobe light. Let's do this one. Strobe light's kind of a weird one. I'll actually do it on this Lumetri clip because he's got some motion going on with this ball. So strobe, in its probably intention, let me go back to effects and type in strobe. In its intention, it's supposed to be like a strobe light, you know, where it just blinks, like there's a white light and it blinks multiple times, like you're in some club and there's like a light going off. So if you drag strobe light in, this is what it does. It's kind of awful. It's like, okay, thanks, right? That's not very exciting. So strobe light on the face is not all that cool. But if you go into, and I got to scroll down to get to it now. Here's strobe light. So you can pick your strobe color, or you could put a picture behind it, and instead of it having color, you can make the layer transparent. Now that only works if you have a layer behind it, underneath it. Okay? So, but let me just do this one. So it's white. I'll leave it white. You can do a blend with original so that instead of it going all the way to white, it'll blend the white with your picture. So now I've got blend at 30%. So now see it kind of does this, right? Which like, okay, fine, but it's slow, right? Kind of the rule is whatever your period is, your duration needs to be less than. So I'm going to set my period to maybe 0.5 and my duration to 0.2. Okay, now let's take a look at it. Now we're getting a much faster flicker, but it's like super, I don't know, uniform, I guess is the word. So there's this random strobe probability. You can increase that and it operates much more randomly. There, see now that's better. See, that gives you a cool flicker effect. I like that so much better. So I like it with a high random strobe probability if you're just kind of looking for a cool special effect sort of thing. Now, like I said, you can use a strobe color. I could pull a color from this. I could make my strobe color blue, which is kind of the color of, you know, the water and the sky. See, that looks pretty good. Or if I pull this up, I could pull in my picture and make my picture last longer. And then instead of color, I can say makes layer transparent. Now my picture doesn't fit. Let me right click and scale this to the frame size. Actually, let's scale it to the, or set to the frame size so we can make it bigger. Okay, so actually here, let's just scale it up because I need it to be all the way. There we go. All right, so now it's taken up the whole thing. That's the sky one. So now you can see the sky through it, right? Instead of using a color, it becomes transparent. So if you want to like blend two videos together, sort of, you can use strobe to do that. And then in this case, I might want to not blend it with the original so much so that the other picture doesn't come through as much, you know, or whatever. I mean, you have to just play with it until you see how you like it. This is going to make the other picture pop through a lot, but blend with original would make it all blend together, and then it wouldn't be near as noticeable. See, you can barely see it. Okay, so that is strobe light. Okay, let's go back to one of these where somebody's kicking the ball. Okay, so he's kicking the ball. We're going to use echo. Echo is a time effect, which means you can kind of give like, I don't know, like trails, sort of. So let me click on this clip. I'm going to find echo. Again, it's a time one. And pull it in. So we're not talking about audio echo. We're talking about visual echo. Now, we'll tell you when you drag it in, if it's a light clip, it automatically gets super bright. That's because the echo operator add that it's automatically on is just like that. If you go to maximum, see, it's way different. All right, the echo time is set to a negative just a little bit, which means it backs up into the frame before it when it plays. And so what you're seeing is you're seeing the ball like right where it was right before. 0.03 seconds before it actually happens. Let me do 0.01 so it's a little bit farther back. Okay, and then number of echoes. How many times do you want it to echo? Do you want it to repeat that frame? So now see the ball is, it's like you can see three versions of the ball. Now it all happens so fast. So you can also echo into the future. So if I say echo 0.5, now it's echoing into the future on this clip, which is kind of breaking this one a lot. So that one doesn't work out so much. So anyway, this just takes a whole lot of playing with. You don't want to echo too far out because you really want it to be like close to what just happened. So 0.2 is probably, plenty, maybe too much, but see, you can see all the versions of it as it goes. This has trouble playing because it needs to be rendered. The decay is how transparent the echoes are. So let me do just 2 echoes and do the echo at minus 0.02. And I'll set my decay at a lower, like a 0.8. Okay, there you go. And that gives you more of a ghosting effect. There, you can see how it kind of ghosts right there. Because it's making that part more transparent. See, now the ball's really transparent. Kind of hard to see. If I do, let's see if I do 4, if you can see it better. There. So now there's like actually 4 copies of this ball happening. And it's kind of hard to see. You get too many of them in there and you just can't see it very much with that decay. Okay, so that's echo. You can do some cool stuff with that. As well. Again, if you move towards the front, then it's looking at the frames in front of it. So you can kind of see the ball there. And you can try different ones. I like maximum, minimum, and screen. Screen, you get more of a ghosting effect. See, that looks pretty neat there. Okay, so that is echo. Another one that's kind of cool is called posterize. If you've ever used Photoshop, posterize is also a Photoshop effect. So posterize is a stylize. Drag it in. And it gives you that kind of, I don't know, colorful. If I turn it up, or turn it down, you'll see there. Like we basically take it to colors instead of it being a picture. So that's kind of neat. And it depends on the levels that you have as far as how close it is to the original picture and how many colors that you have. So posterize level is kind of cool. Same thing with before, you can change your level numbers here and animate those with the stopwatch. So I could put those in there with the stopwatch as well. Okay. Last little bit, I just want to go over how to take a snapshot. So let's say that you want to do some cool little like freeze frame effect and you want to take a snapshot of where you're at currently in your timeline and maybe trace around it or something like that. Okay. So let me scoot down here to this part. All right, let's say right here. And I'm going to take a snapshot. That just means take a picture of this. So there's a camera right here. And I'm just going to call it dude, because he's just kind of a dude. You would tell it to put it in the folder of your project, and you can tell it to go ahead and import it into your project. So you hit OK. Now it's over here. Now here's what I think is fun. You can take a razor right here. Okay. Scoot this down. I'll just put it on a higher layer for a minute. And then put your little dude back in here. And that way, it's going to play, and then it's going to freeze on this picture. Okay? Now, there's other ways you can do this with frame holds and all kinds of other stuff, but this is just one way to do it. All right, so now it's going to be frozen. And then I think it's fun to kind of do a neat pen tool effect where you can like trace around it. Okay? So I'm going to take my pen tool, and I'm going to draw around this guy. Okay, so I'm going to click up here and just kind of draw around it. If you know how to use the pen tool, you can click and drag just like normal. I really wish I wouldn't have chosen such a complicated one for an example. So I'm not going to try to make this look real good, but you can also, here, I'm just going to go across. Turn the opacity down so you can see better, because you can't kind of see. Right here's your opacity, but this is the vector shape. The shape as you draw it is up here. And your shape is going to have an opacity on it. So I could turn that down so I can see. You can also come over here and turn the fill off and put like a stroke on it so you can just see the stroke. Now continuing on drawing. Okay. And again, I'm not making this look all that great right now. I just want to kind of show you how it works and not make you watch me draw. Okay. But let's say that this is my shape, right? And you can increase your stroke size. You know, again, I would fix all of these. You can still use your pen tool, by the way, after you draw to move your points around. So you can still move them around. Okay, let me turn my opacity on the shape back up to 100. And there you go. So if I go here, we play, we kind of like go, he freezes, and then we get like his little outline, maybe his name pops up or something. And then, you know, it continues on. And again, your graphic is automatically going to be 5 seconds like a still picture would. So you can make it even or whatever. So that's kind of fun. Oh, and a bonus one, you can also roughen the edges. That's fun. If you go to Stylize, there's one called Roughen Edges. I can pull that onto the graphic. So that's going to be that, that shape there. And then I'm going to come over here to my shape in my effects panel where it says Roughen Edges. And you can increase the border size. You can change the edge sharpness. You can kind of mess with all of these different things. Change how complex it is and all this good stuff. And it gives you kind of more of a chalk kind of look, I guess you would say, that you can add in there. So, you know, that's kind of fun too, that whole Roughen Edges vibe. So, all right, I have given you a ton of different ideas. Hopefully you found some things that you think will be cool, but I want you to play around and see what you can do with keyframing effects and with trying out some of these different effects in Premiere Pro.